What's going on, guys? Today, no fluff, we're going to get straight into the meat and potatoes. I'm going to prove to you and show you so many different ways that you don't need analog synths and analog equipment to make things sound vintage, warm and slightly unstable feeling. There's so many cool techniques that I'm going to show you today, some of which I've picked up through watching Coop the Truth's little breakdown of his samples. Obviously, like, you know, he's made some of the most iconic samples and got placements with some of the top artists, Summer Walker, Brent, faiyaz, etc, etc. I'm taking some of these techniques plus some that I haven't even shared myself yet, and I'm going to show you in the usual way. So we're going to look at the theory behind this piece here that you just heard, but I'm going to also show you some techniques that I haven't shared yet on other videos, so you're going to want to stay tuned. Of course, I'm B-Sticks. Hit me up on IG for a one-to-one, or if you want to just like ask some questions about this, or if you want this sample, also hit me up on IG or drop a comment down below. Let me know that you're feeling this and you want more content like this. But without further ado, let's jump into the first part of the sample, because there is clearly like two different sections here. I love a switch up, and you just hear it so much in modern music. And I was kind of a bit inspired by the Icon project. I know some people are not saying it's Brent's strongest work. What do you guys think? I'm sharing everything today. I'm going to break down every different technique and every plugin I've used and why I've used it. And I have got our little friend Chordio to just explain the theory behind the first section of the sample. Now, I did use a sound shifter on the master, and that just raised everything up by a semitone. But the first part of the sample is not really in a key as such. But what I've done is I've taken a concept that I've heard Brent use, and I've heard in a lot of like neo soul music over the years. And all that I'm doing is I'm playing a minor 11th chord, which is the type of chord I'm going to show you how to make. And I'm moving it up by a whole step and then back down. So it's just like, it's really one chord shape. Just moving it up, moving it down, moving it up. And then I'm playing some melody stuff over the top of that using some question and answer, and I'm going to break that all down for you. I'm going to show you a little trick about how to create these minor 11th sounds, which are very rich and very full sounding chords. So the first chord that I played in is an E minor 11 chord. Let's build a simple E minor triad. We've got the root being the E, a minor third G, and a fifth B, 3-note chord, which is all well and good. I'm going to add 3 more notes to this. So the first note I'm going to add would turn this chord into a E minor 7th chord, and that is going to be a D. I'm going to add an F sharp, which would be the 9th. See the name of the chord pop up at the top of the chordio as well. And I add that A on top, and we get a beautiful E minor 11th chord. And a really simple way to create these big chords is to create a minor triad, any kind of minor triad. Let's do a D minor triad, for example. So we've got a D, an F and an A here. And if we build a major triad a whole step below our root, so if we build a C major triad, right, and then we put that on top of the chord, so play that in our right hand. That is a formula for us to create a minor 11th chord wherever we are on the keyboard. You can build these minor 11ths wherever you want on the keyboard, or if you just draw one in, then you can obviously move it around up and down, and you can just move minor 11s round and round and round and round forever, and they will sound good pretty much with any interval. And actually all I did was I programmed the E minor 11 chord in its root position, and then I moved it up by a whole step to an F sharp minor 11 chord. If we jump into Logic, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all the processing off and explain every processing decision. Now, I use this Mellotron, which is modeling a vintage piece of equipment made famous by acts in the 60s like the Beatles. It was like one of the first samplers. It used to kind of play small snippets of recorded instruments, but it sounded terrible, but in a way that made it sound great. And you can buy modern reissues of this as well, and a lot of top producers do have them. Logic's actually got its own stock version of this as well. And if I just play you how these two chords sounded on their own, and you can see here my E minor 11, and my F sharp minor 11s. On their own, they're not going to sound anything special, but it's what I did with them. Okay, let's check out the plugins I've used. I've used this Rev Spring. Just give it a little bit of, you know, a bit of space. Then phasing. I always talk about adding movement to my sounds, and this phaser does exactly that. Now here is a little bit of source as to how to get these things moving. And you know, you can use, like Cymatics have a plugin called Origin, which is free. There's Isotope Vinyl as well. They all do similar things, but I know that some of the top sample makers, I know Coop and Army, guys like this, love this plugin and this whole suite of plugins. And we've just got it doing a little bit of like movement there with, in terms of pitch, just drifting a little bit, which is kind of simulating what that old with the old equipment where things were unstable. Now we're building in layers here, right? So next thing I did was I pitched this up by 12 semitones, but then added halftime. What am I doing that for, you may ask? Every layer along the way I'm adding a little bit of more funk, or a little bit more vintage source, or a little bit more, however you want to look at it. But I'm using plugins to create an illusion of something being analog, and it's been sat in a studio for a long time. And when I add all the sounds together, it creates some of its parts, which gives us that effect. So really, anything that's added to this is just dressing the sound. Now, what did I add next? I went for my favorite Multikeys. Now, I've explained this several times before, how I do it, but I just use pigments, and I go into the map section, I choose round robin, and I just drop a couple of different samples that are all on the same note into A, B, C, and D. And what happens is that when I strum out notes, and you should strum out notes like this as well if you're going to do this technique, then you get this really interesting, like playing through the different elements one by one. So you get different, you're achieving different textures there. Now again, if I take these plugins off for a second to show you what each one does, we got Rev Spring again, similar reverb to what I used before. Now this is a special little bit of source from Coop directly, preset in J37 in the send and returns, called Filtered Wave. It does exactly what it says. It sounds like the sound's coming in and out, and I think this goes a really long way to explaining like why the sound feels almost like it's alive and breathing. It's a great preset. I urge you to try it. Check this out. You know, immediately when I add that into really nice analog sounding bed, that it's a great starting point. And also I've panned these to the side to make full use of the stereo field. This kalimba sound here, what's going on here? Let me take off all of my processing and show you the raw sound. Nothing too fancy there, right? Just accentuating some notes. But when I start bringing these plugins in, right, half time in again, and this time I'm allowing through some of that sound. Already we've got some movement going on, some of that instability. Pitched it up, and yep, filtered wave again. So what is that adding in the context of the rest of the sample? Check this out. I don't know why that makes me so happy, but it just does. And then one other note here with the same sort of technique, but this is a ARP or sequence in Omnisphere. I'll show you exactly what it is. It is Chase the Flute. Love this little preset. And again, same chain on there, okay? But this time I'm also adding Shaper Box. I'm panning the sound from right to left in the stereo field as it goes along. I am adding some movement again, in a slightly different way, where I'm using some panning movement as well as the instability that I've got from all the other sounds that we're using. And there's not much more here, right? I'll show you the bass in a second. Let's bring the percussion in. So what did I do here? Again, taking the lead from Coupe, where I heard so many like organic percussion sounds. I just played that out on my table, recorded it with my phone while the speakers were playing as well, which added a little bit of again, grit and almost like resampling effect to the whole sample here. So listen to this. You can hear some noise in the background there. Just added a little bit of Silver Spring, which is favorite reverb at the moment, and EQ'd it out because I added a rim shot with that same interplay going on here, right? And a kick that I added as well. It's not about adding drums, it's just about driving the sample along. And I added some little vocal chops as well. I kind of see them as more percussive, but they kind of, again, little ear candy moments that just pop in and out, right? What have we got if we bring stuff in? Right, that kalimba. You hear how the picture's building up now, right? So I was here and I was thinking, what kind of bass line would fit here? And I could have just gone for root notes, but by doing what I did here, which is quite a busy moving bass line, I contrasted with the other sounds and instruments. So I went for my favorite Scarby Rickenbacker here, put a little decapitator on it, some EQ, where I just took some tops out and a little bit of bottom off, and then I sidechained that to our kick so that it got out the way every time the little low kick sounds. And honestly, there's no real secret to these arpeggiated bass lines. It just popped in my head. But what I'm thinking about is moving through the notes of the chord tones. Hear that a lot in like classical music, right? And I'm just, if you can see, all I'm doing, I'm just moving through the E, the G, B, and then the F sharp. So I'm hitting notes that were within our chords, but I'm creating pattern, and that pattern repeats itself because the brain and the ear loves repeating patterns. My favorite part of this sample comes in the second half, where I brought in this melody, very, very Brent-esque, and I did a question and answer with it. So if I play one, and is just arpeggiating down that minor 11th chord from the top note to a lower note to the F sharp, hitting the chord tones as we go, right? Sound wise, I use Labs, which is a free. For some reason it doesn't show the preset, but it's just like an expressive strings preset. It's free, go cop that. Right, Valhalla Vintage Verb, wow control. You're going to see a lot of this same processing going on here, right? Where I've sound shifted it up and then used half time to bring it back down again and sort of give it a different kind of quality. Just adding that little instability that I love so much. Bit of Echo Boy on there as well, and then EQing it in that kind of way there. And on its own, it sounds like this. And very, very similar processing on this Tish plugin here. I've got this like answer to that question there. And again it comes in. I just love samples where you can mute any elements and still just like, you know, it still sound good. So that's pretty much everything for that first part of the sample, and then I just switched it up. And what did I do on the next part? Well, bit more conventional harmony on this second section, and you'll be pleased to know that I programmed this in C major or A minor, and I'll show you the chords that I used. So every decision that I've made here is with that, how can I make this more analog vintage sort of sounding? And you can see this technique of using J37, you can see this technique of half time using wow control as my like main, if I want to say main actors in this particular scene, right? In terms of processing, I'm really like relying heavily on them to do the heavy lifting. Now chord wise, for this next section, I am starting with a D minor 9 chord. So if we just build a D minor triad, we add 2 more notes, so we're going to add the minor 7th, and we can always find a minor 7th by taking a note that is 2 notes below our root note, but we're going to raise it up to, and then we add the minor 9, and to find the 9 we just go 2 notes above our root and we add that at the top of the chord. We get, and again, remember what we said before about if we want to make a D minor 11 chord, we take our D minor triad and we could add a C major triad on top of it, right? And what I actually have done here is I've used that theory, but then I've taken the G in the chord and moved it down an octave to create that nice crunchy voicing that I think sounds beautiful. And that is the first voicing that I used in this next section. What am I doing there? My second chord, I'm going to an E dominant chord, and that suggests that I'm going to be moving somewhere, because an E dominant chord is not in the scale of C major or A minor, but it does relate to the 6th degree in the C major scale, which is an A, because E major or dominant is the 5 chord of A, and we call that secondary dominance, because the natural dominant in the scale of C major would be G. So we could play like a G major, and that would want to pull back and resolve to our C major. So that would be a 5-1 in C major. But I actually don't resolve to the A minor. So I'm creating tension. So I'm going from that D minor chord, we go to an E major or E dominant chord. Check this out. Then I move to a C dominant from that E dominant chord instead of going to an A minor. So we're going to like a C dominant sound, and then that C does resolve to an F major 9. But the cool thing is the F major 9 is exactly the same voicing that we played for the D minor 9. Added some rhythm, and I added a motif. What's a motif? K1, Usher, have all got motifs in their music. You can see the motif here. Like all these guys use motifs, and the motif here is just that blah, 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 blah. I'm just hammering home that little hook, that little earworm. With our chords underneath, you can see we're going from that D minor to that E major or dominant to that C dominant. And I'm playing quite empty voices here as well to that F major, right? What I did with this was quite interesting. So I actually, you see all these plugins here, but I put these on after. The only thing I did have was this sound shifter. Was I rendered it out into audio, okay? Then I brought it down here and I stretched it. Well, I made it twice as fast as it was by, in Logic you can just do this, and it was this long, and I just halved the length and it sped it up right to this. And what I then did was I sound shifted it back down. I half timed it. There we go now. And to me that almost sounded like it was sampled off a record. Analog, old school, loved that sound. I EQ'd that. I then added, filtered wave, and we had this. Feel it breathing now. And soothe, just to take out some little harsh resonances. Then I doubled it with the high kalimba, but on that kalimba I added all these plugins as well to make a layered textured sound. I added some multi-keys again, where I just doubled up on that again. Processing same as before. I thought, let me create a textured sound here. So I went to that Celeste again and I played these notes in, random notes in C major, nothing too exciting, but watch this. Added I had a vintage verb, a decapitator, almost sounds like a distorted guitar, right? Added shaper box, where I'm doing some processing with that. Then our instability, phase mistress, where I'm adding some phasing, right? Sound shifter and vintage verb, a long vintage verb, really ambient. I rendered that out and I time stretched it and I was left with this. And on that I just added a little bit of panning and some volume automation. DIY texture to add in. I added a forest floor where I boosted frequencies all on the note C. Just use a frequency chart if you want to do something similar. And that gives us like an ethereal ambient background sound. Now, arpeggiated bass line for the first half. Just going through the chord tones again. So we got context with our first half of the sample. That's C dominant. Then we got the F major. Added some guitar that I recorded on my phone. Nylon string guitar, just playing those voices out. Same percussion in again as we had before. The rim shot, different reverb quality on there. I just turned the reverb down on it. Still got that kick. So there is some context to this. We've got similar sounds to what we had before, so it feels like it's coming from the same place, right? Kalimba, add that in, or Celeste. And then to bring that mellotron back, and I changed the bass notes. So I've come away from that pattern now. And here we are, together. It's a beautiful thing, right? We put the sound shifter back on. Guys, if you got something out of this, which I hope you did, hit me up on IG, B6 Production, for a one-to-one. If you're still here watching now, I appreciate you guys. Like and subscribe, and I will catch you on the next one. Peace.